Alexander Cadman Karp was born on October 2nd, 1967 in the mainline township of Lower Merion, Pennsylvania, the elder of two sons in a household defined by improbable juxtapositions. His father, Peter Karp, was a progressive Jewish visual artist who sold charcoal sketches at local street fairs. His mother, Phyllis Karp, née Driver, was a black Brooklyn-raised pediatrician who commuted to North Philadelphia clinics at a time when interracial marriages were still rare on the East Coast. Their living room shelves held equal parts Frantz Fanon and Ludwig Wittgenstein, Basquiat prints next to an American flag salvaged from an anti-Vietnam protest. From that patchwork, Karp absorbed a sense that a single identity was always an incomplete description. In elementary school, he battled severe dyslexia that inverted letters and fractured sentences. Specialists suggested special education tracks. His mother insisted on immersion therapy, reading him Isaac Asimov aloud each evening. The trick worked. By sixth grade, he could parse Latin declensions more quickly than his classmates. Chess, which relied on spatial reasoning rather than linear text, became his refuge, and by age 13, he was traveling to weekend tournaments with a USCF rating hovering around 2,000. He later credited dyslexia with forcing him to see sideways, an aptitude that would shape Palantir's data fusion ethos. Karp entered Haverford College in 1985 as a noted nonconformist, majoring in political science but attending more philosophy seminars than were technically required. He spent 2 summers underwriting small business loans at Wells Fargo, learning just enough stochastic math to appreciate risk, but used the income to backpack through Andalusia and Morocco, collecting notebooks filled with reflections on Islamic legal pluralism. Haverford awarded him a BA in 1989 for a thesis comparing Thomas Hobbes's concept of sovereignty with Hannah Arendt's counsels of action, arguing they were complementary visions for stabilizing plural societies under existential threat. Law beckoned next. He entered Stanford Law School in 1989 and by orientation week had already clashed with Peter Thiel in a Federalist Society debate about the Ninth Amendment. Karp's final year paper, Rights, Recognition, and the Problem of Radical Plurality, drew heavily on Charles Taylor and was later cited in legal theory journals for its critique of procedural liberalism. He graduated with a JD in 1992, but, incurious about billable hour culture, deferred the bar. Instead, he used Fulbright funding to attend Johann Wolfgang Goethe University in Frankfurt, where he convinced renowned neo-Marxist philosopher Jürgen Habermas to supervise his doctoral work. Habermas initially considered Karp's proposal, an integrative reading of Heidegger's ontology and Rawlsian public reason, ambitious to the point of hubris. But the American's resilience won him over. 5 years later, Karp submitted a 450-page dissertation titled Aggression and Recognition on the dialectics of self-realization and post-metaphysical thought, earning a doctorate in 2002. The text wrestled with how plural societies avert violence without erasing difference, a preoccupation that would haunt his later corporate life. Living frugally on German stipends, he invested spare euros in technology funds and began personal trading in biotech stocks. By 2002, he returned to Palo Alto with a $3 million portfolio, enough to found Cadman Group, a boutique wealth management firm catering to left-leaning academics who mistrusted Wall Street but disliked poverty even more. Cadman offered algorithmic rebalancing long before robo-advisor entered the lexicon. Yet Karp found spreadsheets spiritually claustrophobic. At a Stanford social event that autumn, he re-encountered Thiel, who had just sold PayPal to eBay. Thiel pitched an idea: software that could detect anomalous patterns across disparate data sets. Financial transfers, phone metadata, immigration records, without violating American civil liberties law. He needed someone conversant in both machine learning and moral philosophy to run it. Karp, by all accounts, laughed and replied, "So you want me to build the epistemology of state power?" Thiel said yes. That summer he launched Thiel Capital Management, an arbitrage fund that wrote out of the money puts on mid-cap tech stocks with Columbus Day expiries, exploiting a calendar quirk in settlement cycles. The trades delivered a respectable but unspectacular 18% annualized return. What mattered more was that the fund served as social API into the early Silicon Valley brain trust. In a nondescript office on University Avenue, he met Max Levchin, a Ukrainian emigre who demoed a Palm Pilot cryptography tool capable of splitting a numeric token across two devices, so that neither alone revealed the secret. Levchin envisioned digital cash for the dawning era of personal organizers. Thiel saw a wedge into the financial rails Visa and MasterCard had neglected because average e-commerce transactions were below their per-swipe cost threshold. In December 1998, Thiel injected $$250,000 of his own money into Confinity, taking the role of CEO and offering Levchin the title of CTO. Their first product allowed Palm users to beam payments via infrared, but the breakthrough came when engineer Luke Nosek wired the backend to email addresses, bypassing hardware limitations. Confinity rebranded the service PayPal and launched a referral bonus that paid $$10 into any user's new account and another $$10 to the inviter. Burn rates soared to $$10 million a month, peaking at 70% of on-hand cash, but the network effect was instantaneous. By February 2000, PayPal had 1.5 million users and a growth curve that bent upward like a second derivative. Fraud threatened to gut gross margin. Carders in Russia and Indonesia exploited stolen numbers to generate phantom accounts. Yet Thiel insisted on growth first, arguing internally that a payments firm with scale could always raise its rake or be acquired, while a fraud-free service with no users would die quietly. The dot-com crash arrived 6 weeks after PayPal announced a Series C led by Nokia Ventures. Capital markets froze, forcing Thiel to slash referral bonuses, replace the Visa rails with the cheaper automated clearinghouse, and deploy the first neural net fraud engine in consumer finance. The gamble worked. By spring 2002, PayPal was transaction positive. The company went public on NASDAQ in February at $13 a share, and eBay, terrified of losing its escrow backbone, bought PayPal in July for $1.5 billion. Thiel, who had taken a salary of $1 in 2001, cleared $55 million after taxes. More significant than the money was the diaspora of alumni. Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, David Sachs, Jawed Karim, Steve Chun, Chad Hurley, Keith Rabois, Relof Botah, and Levchin himself. Collectively, they would build Tesla, LinkedIn, YouTube, Yelp, Square, Slide, Yammer, and Kozla Ventures, saturating the valley with a PayPal-ish ethos of blitz-scaling and vengeance against incumbents. Flush with capital and restless for a problem worthy of his newly expanded ambition, Thiel joined four engineers: Alex Karp, Joe Lonsdale, Stephen Cohen, and Nathan Gettings, in 2003 to found Palantir Technologies. The pitch to In-Q-Tel, the CIA's venture arm, was audacious: a platform that could parse fragmented data sets, terrorist finance records, call detail logs, visa applications, and surface hidden relationships without violating civil liberty constraints baked into American law. The result was Gotham, a system built on graph theory and Bayesian inference that allowed analysts to drag and drop nodes on a canvas to watch probabilistic links bloom like neural dendrites. Palantir's fortunes waxed with a war on terror. By 2009, it had contracts with the NSA, FBI, and SOCOM. By 2020, it was processing COVID-19 supply chain for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Critics see dystopian surveillance. Defenders see a rare example of Silicon Valley applying its prowess to national security rather than photo sharing. Thiel's own dichotomy, libertarian vocabulary married to statecraft execution, remains unresolved and perhaps intentionally so.